She's our senior research associate and head of our senior executive board. She'll be presenting some of our best practice research, extraordinary work that she's done in the past, also as an MA from my alma mater at Columbia University, and has done extraordinary work in competency development and board leadership, organizational group dynamics change at Yale University, at change consulting organizations and Workitect. So she has a substantial and significant background that spans many years and excellent work with our senior executive board organizations. So welcome, Christy, as well to our session today.
Thank you very much, Lou. I'm definitely looking forward to today's session.
Great. So without further ado, let's get on with our presentation. I'm going to just bring this down here, and we're going to share the screen, and we'll allow this. Okay, excellent. So today at BPI, what we're going to be presenting to you on is the next practices in learning and leadership development, so going beyond best practice. And what we mean by beyond best practices, it's really not enough to benchmark and to say this is what a practice is within an organization, and we'll now place it into our organization. What we believe in is taking practices and enabling them to motivate us to become passionate to create those practices inside of our organizations, making them fun and engaging so that our company really takes part in these programs and that they're unique to our culture and business strategy. So we talked a little bit about our books, a little bit about our awards that we got at BPI that we have throughout the world. And here it is today. Christy O'Neill, here she is on the left side here, and me, I'm Lewis Carter. We're talking about going beyond best practices and helping you beyond best practices. We have the old cartoon superheroes to illustrate that point. So what do you think of when you see this company, Volkswagen? Well, most people say punch buggies and also German engineering, and well, that is all true. One thing I think about and that I've learned about Volkswagen is that they really think about innovative methods to engage their customers and their employees. And this external brand really is pervasive inside of the internal culture as well. It becomes very much a part of the internal culture. And they had a project they did called the Fun Theory, where they had employees go down into subways to discover a way of how do they get people to choose the stairs by making it more fun to do. So only about 10% of people were actually taking the stairs and 90% of the people were taking the escalator. So to answer this question of how did they get people to take the stairs to make it more fun to do, they designed a piano on the stairs so that more people would find it fun to do the stairs. And it actually had the correct notes. So soon thereafter, children started using the stairs, and then the parents did, and then more and more they flipped that principle around, and before they knew it, 90% of the people were using the stairs and only 10% of people were using the escalator. We'd like to bring you this theory today of fun. How do we engage our people in best practice talent solutions and leadership development, workforce planning initiatives that make it more fun for them to take part in these efforts? So this is the algorithm for this kind of fun theory. It is, what's the incentive for people to basically take the stairs? In this case, it was a piano. And the goal was better health. So the question to you is, what is your goal, organizational goal, and how does that connect in with incentives that you'll place on your programs? So the question we have is, how do you get more people to choose your program by making it more fun to do? And so if you would right now, write on a little piece of paper your talent challenge. And how are you making it more fun and innovative? Just be thinking about that inside as we go along. The best practice solutions model is how we determine what our best cases are around the world and how we analyze which one is best and innovative next from others. So we talk about different parts of the process. Number one is purposeful data and analytics that inform an innovative concept that you design and develop with your organization to increase engagement So a participative, collaborative, co-created solution that will create outcomes that will enable your sponsors to continually support and change the program throughout time, which thus creates the same system over and over again. We continuously adapt and evolve this system throughout time, and it becomes part of the organization, its success, and the outcomes with which you purposefully wish to succeed. So BPI current research, who have we talked to? Well, to my right is Christy O'Neill. She has done an enormous amount of research talking with organizations throughout all industries, and from mid to large size organizations throughout the globe in a range of industries from aerospace to pharma and telecom on specifically talent development and workforce planning initiatives. She's found tremendous amounts of information and really exciting best practice case study examples of which she will show to you today. So here it is, Christy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lou. I'm definitely looking forward to sharing some of the cases that we found in the research that we led this year in 2013. So as Lou had mentioned, by showing that model, organizations are really moving into that space of inspiring their people, inspiring their employees to make things more innovative, make things more fun, and really utilizing data for incentives for their programs and making everything purposeful and really aligning it with the business strategy. So we're going to walk through some of those pieces today. So again, our major findings this year, people are talking about workforce planning and analytics. So how do we gather data, and then how do we use it, making sure it's purposeful? And then talent development. What are some of the key critical success factors when it comes to our programs? What is the art that you're bringing? How are you making things innovative and fun for individuals? And then how do you measure that? So let's go ahead and begin with workforce planning and analytics. So organizations that we've spoke with, we've learned that 7 out of 10 organizations are really using data at the enterprise-wide level. What exactly does this mean? This means that we're really standardizing the way that we use our data. Look at the programs and practices within your organizations. 7 out of 10 of the organizations right now, even on this call, are standardizing their practices. Another 2 are moving in this direction. So that's 90% of organizations are either in or moving into the space of standardizing their practices. We also know that 92% of organizations are using multiple data sources. What does this mean? This means that talent decisions are being based off of multiple sources of data. So think back to the last time you made a talent decision. Was it just based off of an interview? Probably not. It was probably based off of survey information and some other pieces as well. So recognizing that we now have so many options to pull from when we're making our talent decisions. Our third piece is data forecasting, looking to the future. What does leadership look like in your organization in the future? 85% of organizations are using qualitative and quantitative data. So not only are we trying to figure out the competencies of what future leaders look like in our organization, we're also trying to figure out how many people we will need for those critical roles. And of course, this we have found, based on conversations, is the most challenging and yet the most important piece of workforce planning and analytics. So what does this mean to you? This is an opportunity. This is exciting for you. This means that you can look to the future now to predict what you will be needing and learning what leadership looks like in your organization. So this is a great opportunity for everybody here. HR and HR representatives are really facilitating this effort, but of course it's not just HR who is involved when it comes to gathering and using data with talent decisions. We also have corporate management involved and operational business lines. So there are generally teams that are going at this when it comes to using data. So what data is actually being used to make talent strategies, to really design things for the leaders of the future? Well, we've learned that it's traditional metrics. And of course this makes sense, looking at the fact that maybe it is HR that is facilitating this effort. So as we go through this, think about the talent decisions that you've been making and the decisions and basically all the talent programs that you've put together. The majority of organizations are using these traditional metrics. Employee turnover data, looking at surveys across the board, also looking at performance reviews, whether they be annual, biannual, looking at 360-degree assessments, of course our HR dashboard information, and then lastly interviews with leadership. So that's the traditional piece that people are looking at right now. But we're making a big shift. Organizations that we've spoken with are looking at next practices. They're looking externally. They want to plan ahead. It's no longer looking at what we have now, historical data. It's looking at what other organizations are doing. So today we'll walk through some cases, and then of course we might hear from you as well, some of the things that you're doing. So what are the high-performing companies doing right now? How are you benchmarking against them? How are you ranking when it comes to best practice indicators? When we look at our business outcomes, are you predicting ahead, looking at what the profit may be, the customer value, etc.? And of course also looking at the future of workforce outcomes, predicting ahead, what may turnover look like, what might you need in the future for performance, etc. So why are we making this shift away from our traditional metrics, what we have now through just interviews, to the future? We're doing this because we need to inform our business strategy. It's so important that we have that alignment now. So who is doing this well? Well, I spoke with Michael Manning, who is leading this effort at Edison International. Now, Edison International is the parent company for Southern California Edison, which is one of the largest electric utilities in the United States. They cover over 180 cities, including Los Angeles. They have about 17,000 employees, just a little under. They've been around for over 120 years, yet they just began their workforce planning process. So this may be something that you can be familiar with. You may be just beginning, you may be looking to do it, or maybe you're in the same boat. So they began in 2010, and why exactly did they need to do this? Well, they had two real big imperatives. One was around the HR strategy, and one was around business strategy. When it comes to HR, they had a big need. As it turns out, in 2013 alone, so this year, 30 to 40% of the workers in the electric area or the electric power industry are eligible to retire. That is a huge number. I want you to take a minute and think about that. Imagine 30 to 40% of your workforce possibly able to retire. The people that have the most knowledge about the industry, about your organization itself, and then have perhaps those technical skills that you're still trying to train those that are coming into your organization. So that's neat. They need to focus on the headcount of the future, but because they began in 2010, looking externally again, knowing these numbers in the industry about this need, this deficit, they were able to create that headcount and look ahead. The second piece, of course, was the business strategy. They really focus on safe, affordable, and reliable service. That is their mantra, that is their goal. To be safe, they need finances. They need to make sure that they are investing in their infrastructure. Do they have all the electric poles that they need? Have they invested in their technology? Do they have money for renewable resources for the future to stay ahead in the industry? So they, of course, need to be lean with their spending and be aware of what's happening in the field as well. So those were the two imperatives, and what did they do? Well, Michael really boiled it down, and here are three big takeaways for everybody. Number one, successful integration. They made sure, as Michael had said, to align this workforce planning process with the annual planning cycle. He also partnered with finance. He said that was one of the best decisions that he could have made. And why is this? Well, let's think about that. If we're aligning our workforce planning strategy with our planning cycle, we can begin to make our decisions together at the enterprise-wide level. If we need to forecast out, we can actually make our decisions together, realizing what our needs are together. And of course, when we look at it and we need to perhaps figure out who may be retiring in this example, we know what the budget may be for that for us. So that was one piece, the integration. The second piece was making sure it was enterprise-wide. Not only are we making sure that we have everyone involved, but that we know that they know what workforce planning actually is. So Michael said that what he did is created a data dictionary, making sure that he put the technical term for what everything was right next to the business term, so everyone knew exactly what that meant, and then even the measurement, how do you measure that? So again, pulling everything together, creating a dictionary. And then the last piece, really about that sponsorship and making sure that you have stakeholders involved, active participation. He had one-on-one interviews with people. He made sure that everyone knew what this was. They had a huge communication strategy rollout. A one-pager went out to the entire organization to make sure that they understood what this was, that it wasn't something that was new and popping up, that leadership really had a great piece in, and made sure that anyone, any stakeholder that would actually be using this process or any tools that were being used to forecast ahead, that they would be getting the full benefit of it, and that he understood what they needed and what they would be able to give as well. So that's just one example of a full enterprise-wide case. Now here's the term that we hear right? Big, hairy, audacious goal. It may be overused. I'm a huge fan of it. So that was Edison International's big, hairy, audacious goal. Focusing on that, the HR 30 to 40% of people may be leaving, looking ahead at making sure that they have money for, investing internally, et cetera, and of course, externally for resources. What's your goal? That's a great interest to us as well. What is your big goal when it comes to the use of data to inform talent programs and talent strategies? Everyone has something different. So Lou had asked before for everyone to go ahead and jot down on a sheet of paper, what your talent goals are, some of the challenges that perhaps you're having. And so this is in line with that too. So as you go through this, start jotting down some of the pieces that you will need to achieve that goal. I'd be happy to share with you some of the things that I've heard through our conversations. Number one, enabling managers to do the work themselves. Organizations really want their managers to have information at their fingertips, right? A huge goal for people. And of course, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but the more you're moving towards this, the more likely it's going to become, especially with partnerships that you're creating. So they want managers to have ready now data. They want it automated. They want their managers to be able to make decisions at the drop of a dime to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be self-sufficient in their work. The second piece is strategic partnerships, as Michael Manning had done this so well at Southern California Edison, making sure that you're involving yourself, whether you are HR or you're in line with HR with the business as well. Organizations want a seat at that strategy table. They want to be a part of those planning sessions. And of course, how do you do that? You have to make sure that we're aligning our planning cycles, corporate and business as well. And that's a third thing that organizations are really focusing on. They want to integrate their cycles, they want standardization, and as we've seen with the data, organizations are already moving into this space if they're not there already. Now when it comes to talent development, which is really what we're all so fascinated with and so interested in, especially as organizations are so passionate about, it's more than just data. It's more than how many people are we having, who's in the programs, etc. It's an art. It's what you bring to make it fun, to make it innovative. So I'm going to walk through some of the data from what we've learned about programs. What are some key things that are in these programs that make them so special, but also how some organizations are innovating to really make them a next practice. So here we have the key elements of talent development programs. This is probably nothing new to you. This is things that we see every year. Organizations using action learning, so giving people an experience that is tied to a business goal, giving people the opportunity to have 360 so people perceive that, so they understand how people perceive them, and of course they understand how they're perceiving themselves, and that they have exposure to senior executives, perhaps an advocate or someone on the front end or back end of a program to be involved, really leading to sponsorship. So here's an example. I want you to imagine that you're in the top 4% at Microsoft. Congratulations, you are part of the bench program. As a member of the bench program, you will be put through to an awesome immersive program. And this program is called Frontlines. It actually began in 2010. You will be sent overseas to an emerging market for about 5 days or so. And while you're there, you have the opportunity to meet with a government official, so really gaining that business acumen. You have the opportunity to work with a strategic partner on the ground, helping them, of course this is an action learning program, helping them with a current need that they have. And of course while you're doing this, this is also a piece of developing corporate social responsibility for yourself and for Microsoft. You're utilizing Microsoft's tools, you have a better idea of actually your organization in itself. Microsoft really calls this a three-way win. Microsoft wins because they're really developing that pipeline for talent when they come back. The individual wins because they have this opportunity to develop, to meet people as far as the cohort, to grow their network, to have those experiences that they never would have had. And then of course the third win is the strategic partner on the ground. Not only are they having a need met, they get to meet people that have these amazing skills, and when those individuals go back to Microsoft, they hold on to that relationship through coaching, through conversations, virtual work, etc. So this is a perfect example of immersive leadership, that opportunity to jump right in. So this is a good example. But it's not just key elements that are in every program, right? There are critical success factors that make these programs what they are today. And here are 4 that we found. There's a little bit of overlap you'll see. Number 1, support from senior leadership. Are your leaders involved? Perhaps you are the leader. Are you involved in your talent development programs? Number 2, program design. Have you began with purpose, as we had shown with that model before? Are you clear with what you're looking to gain? Are you co-creating with your stakeholders that will be involved? Number 3, have you integrated this program with other talent functions? That is so important. If you were to leave right now your organization, would anybody be able to pick up where you left off, or would it just die off? This is so important to talk about that integration of your program, perhaps with succession planning or career development or any other pieces. And the 4th piece is looking at new or emerging leadership competencies. Are you clear with what you want your leaders to learn when they come back to work? Do you know what the leader will look like? Are your leadership competencies aligned with where you need to be in the future? So not looking at your future or your organization now, but looking at the future of what leaders will be in your organization. And here is Novo Nordisk. So I want you to be welcomed to Novo Nordisk as a leader. You're currently a vice president, if you can imagine this. You have the potential to become a senior vice president, which is why you've been selected. Now, this experience is extremely unique. Your CEO, who is named Lars Sorensen, actually owns this program. And he's going to take you overseas to an inspirational leadership journey. Now, this journey is quite unique. It's full of different sensory experiences. Together you're eating, you're having different experiences, you're having moving experiences, you're hiking, you're biking, you're even rowing together. Very unique. It really starts with your heart and then your head. It's not as structured as a number of other programs. They really look at storytelling and experiential learning. Lars actually begins by telling a story, his personal leadership story, and bringing different pieces together. The group follows, so you really get that passion. But not only are you getting passionate about the group, but you're getting passionate about your cause with Novo Nordisk. You have the opportunity to meet patients on the ground with diabetes, healthcare providers that are really working to battle this with their patients. So you're becoming more passionate about what you're doing and your purpose at Novo Nordisk. And then we've also learned when speaking with a leader here that what they really do is they come back and they spread that, right? They're creating a contagious movement in the organization, especially from experts that we've spoken with. The most contagious movements come through word of mouth, stories and triggers and such. So people come back and they're telling stories of success and passion. And now everyone internally understands that there's world-class opportunities in the organization. So they're more likely to be engaged and actually be retained and perhaps become a successor in the organization. Now there are 5 key practices when we're talking about creating credible successors. We have them listed here. The first piece is really making sure that you're offering your talent developmental opportunities. So I want you to imagine that you're at Turner now. I know you've had a lot of movement in the last 15 minutes or so. So you're at Turner, which is a Time Warner company. You're now at home, you're flipping through your television, and you pause for a moment because you see your CEO. And your CEO says, "I want TV everywhere." And you wonder, what does that mean? Well, what he said is he wants TV everywhere. He wants an opportunity for anyone who is a customer at Turner to have live broadcasting of TV no matter where they are, streaming to mobile devices at no additional cost to that consumer. You flip off the television and you think to yourself, well, that's neat. How do I get involved? When you go to work, you're offered the stretch assignment as a leader. Part of one of their leadership development programs included this initiative where you, with other leaders, have this opportunity to take on this big hurdle, something that's completely new in the field. So you have the opportunity to figure out how to monetize what this might look like, to have it streaming live. It's cross-functional because now you're trying to learn marketing and different pieces and different relationships that you'll need to move ahead. So this is just one example of a development or really a cross-functional stretch assignment that Turner has actually offered to its leaders. And of course, cross-functional deployment and cross-functional examples or situations are very important to leaders. Gap does this well. And of course, Gap, who's also involved with Banana Republic and Old Navy, those brands, they also have a neat program called the MindSpark program. And when we talk about innovation, here's a great example of a company that has done this well. Of course, one of their big areas is creativity and leadership in this area. So Gap has put something together called the MindSpark program. It's 3.5 days. And as a leader in the MindSpark program, you have an opportunity to connect with people across different brands, across different functions, IT, marketing, etc., and of course across different levels in the organization. So imagine having now a network of people that you never would have had exposure to before. And what exactly is the purpose of MindSpark? Well, when your CEO comes together with your brand presidents 3 times a year, they come together and they create a question around a business goal. And it's always starting with how might we, which is of course positive psychology, looking ahead. How might we create a customer-focused culture that is a completely new phenomenon for the customer itself. So you, along with perhaps 30 to 40 other leaders, have an opportunity to be in one room where over 50% of the stimulus making you think differently comes externally. So it's not just the people in the room, which of course is inspiring in itself. They're bringing in people that just are very non-traditional. Example, someone that's breathing fire, someone who's swallowing swords, right? This is not the traditional person that's sitting across from you at a board table. You also have perhaps someone that's coming in to share their leadership story, but it's not what you would expect. It's not someone that comes in to tell you, this is what I've taken, the 5 steps to get to where I am. It's someone that will come in and say, I was on the full track to becoming a CEO in my IT department. However, I started running and I realized that was my passion and completely changed my entire lifestyle. So making you think differently using both sides of your brain, bringing in neuropsychology. And this is just another example of a cross-functional opportunity for leaders to be exposed at different areas. A third piece, discussions about top talent, really making sure that you're talking about your talent. But what Dunkin' Brands does well, they talk to their talent. So it's not only making sure that the top talent is known about, but that they understand that they're heard. And what Dunkin' Brands does unique, they have something called stay interviews. And now a number of organizations, of course, use stay interviews, but they're usually used during exit interviews. Dunkin' does this differently. During performance conversations, they ask a few questions. Now, if you're a leader here at Dunkin' Brands, you're not talking to your direct supervisor. You're talking with a supervisor or a person a level up in a different department or different function. This is important for 2 reasons. One, when they ask you questions, because this is a question-based interview, of course, you're more likely to be honest as a leader because you're not concerned perhaps about the relationship or the consequences, etc. And that other leader in the different department has exposure to you and has exposure to when you function, breaking silos, having new respect for that area. It's very smart how this is pulled together. And then, of course, the questions, the 3 questions that stand out for me are, what are you doing? What are you doing that you're enjoying? What are some things that are not going so well? And then the third piece is, what would ever cause you to leave? And that's a very powerful question because they're able to address this during that year and put it into action rather than having it at the end scale when people are leaving during exit interviews. So that's what Dunkin' is doing. And of course, making sure that you have ongoing assessment of your talent and you're increasing your advocacy for your top talent is so important for leaders to really take a stake or take a hold in the development of others. And those are conversations that we're having with organizations as well, especially in top high potential programs. So what does this all mean? We've learned that 91% of organizations really look to increase employee engagement. It's a huge driver for them. They really genuinely care about their stakeholders, about their employees. And how are they really showing this or demonstrating this? Well, here we have Novellus. Novellus is a top generator or a top creator of aluminum products, a lot of things that you may not even know you come across on a daily basis, whether it be cans for the soda industry, etc., some high-end cars, things of that nature, and organizations are even shifting more towards the use of their products. Well, what do? They create an environment that is fully visible when it comes to the values of Novellus. So let me show you what that means, global value visibility. This is the visual tool that Novellus uses. They call it the culture map. Now this culture map, of course, it is a word cloud that we see, but they really use words that are fully engaging to its people and show the employees that they really are hearing them. Now there are 2 things that you should notice in this map. The first one, of course, is one Novellus, is the biggest piece. And that completely makes sense. They are creating a culture of unity, of oneness. And if we look at this, this is how powerful this tool is. This is actually located in all of their locations around the world. It's translated into the local language, except for the word one Novellus, which remains in English. So this is a very powerful tool when you go to different sites you feel at home, you feel engaged, you understand all the values are right in front of your face, the things that people focus on, people are really looking to, are wherever you go at Novellus. The second piece that you'll notice is the word safe. This is extremely important because they are moving to a space to really look to have no accidents on sites, etc. And they're saying you cannot be safe unless you are one Novellus. So again, a very powerful visual tool that shows that they hear their employees and they're sharing back with them in local languages what they're hearing. So again, this has been a lot of information, I know. So let's just briefly touch on what we've learned in this webinar. First, engaging talent is absolutely critical. We've shown examples of what talent has been going through different programs, what that looks like, and making sure that employees really are incentivized and that they understand the program so that you have a clear outcome of what you want, both of the program, how it aligns with different strategies in your company, and the talent themselves, what they need to do when they leave. The second piece, people are reaching business goals when they're innovating. So we do the same thing, or organizations are doing the same thing year after year, but the organizations that are taking a new twist or a new look and innovating their incentive programs, making sure that their programs are innovative in themselves and that you understand the goal that you want at the end of the program. The third piece, standardization, making sure that across the board, across your organization, you have some form of a common language. You've involved your stakeholders who may become sponsors either on the front end or the tail end. And then, of course, the fact that these programs have all really involved action learning or really experiential experiences, right? Experiential opportunities, some form of communication in 360s, virtual communication, etc., and involvement with senior leadership. And it's all been through the use of an innovative lens, a new way of looking at things that's been communicated correctly. So again, looking at this model, this best practice talent solutions model, what you'll notice is that all these organizations really led with purpose. They use data, as we've seen, especially with standardization. They've created innovative ways of seeing things and brought their stakeholders together. They've engaged their talent through these experiential opportunities, 360s, etc. They've looked at the outcomes, and by actually creating such great outcomes have created sponsorship opportunities for their programs. So if they were ever to leave their organization, their programs remain. And of course, organizations then use that to mine data to figure out what's needed for the following year.
Christy, you're excellent as always. The amount of research and information you have captured is phenomenal in the past year. She did a great job as always, incredible. Thank you, Christy, so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And so this is wonderful. We're going to open it up now to questions and thoughts, and even to talk about your own talent challenges. You know, it's really the question. Describe your talent challenge, and how are you making it fun or innovative? So, Ali, if you would, we could open up the lines, or you could manage some questions and thoughts. Please, it's up to you. Please.
Sure. Yeah, sure. First, thank you very much, Luis and Christy, for a very, very intriguing presentation. And folks, now we are open for the Q&A. So if you have questions, either you could post it in the question box, and I'll be happy to read them over on your behalf. Or you could raise your hand, and I'll give you an opportunity to speak to them. I will unmute your microphone. I understand there are a few questions already posted in the question box, so let me go over and try to see. Okay, there's one interesting question. In your experience, which part of the hiring process do most of the leaders go wrong in hiring the right talent?
When it comes to hiring talent, I think that what we've learned through conversations is it really depends on what type of talent you're looking for. We've learned that 1 to 20% of organizations are creating partnerships directly with schools. So what we've learned is the biggest challenge that organizations have had, or where they've gone wrong, is they've not aligned that acquisition program with planning cycles and budgeting. I'll give you an example. We learned from an organization that we had spoken with that because they did not align their programs and processes, the recruiter had to go out more than once after the budgeting cycle came through because they were given different times or different numbers of people that they needed. So we've learned that aligning those systems or those planning cycles has been important. That's been a challenge for some people. We've learned that organizations have also had trouble with creating those partnerships across silos. That's so important. And being clear on who the critical talent is that you're looking for of the future. It's not looking for what you need now, but looking forward ahead, really. Lou, is there anything you might add to that?
No, I love that. I think the issue about predictive analytics and looking at workforce planning related to predictive analytics is of particular importance to your question, because it's about historical data and what can we garner from historical data to make better informed decisions about hiring, succession planning, development for the future of organizations. So I think it was really well articulated, Christy. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We have another one from Brother Ghani. The question is, I'm curious about the methodology of research that you use to collect data. I appreciate if you could explain it briefly.
Yep, happy to do it. Our BPI methodology is based on a case study approach. So we have hundreds of conversations with senior executives worldwide. They also apply to us to show their best practice. So on bpiworld.com, you can actually apply for a best practice. And so we get from there as well. Our subscriber base as well, we have over 42,000 subscribers to our e-journal. We garner from that. So it's a mix of survey plus case study research, which is one-on-one interviews.
Okay, we have another question from Brother Mahmoud. I think your question, if you can rephrase, or let me try to unmute you, see if you can speak up. Let me see. Unfortunately, I can't unmute his microphone. The question is, making the work environment innovative. Is this a responsibility of whom? I think the question, whose responsibility is to making the work environment innovative?
Christy, you want to take that?
Yeah, we can definitely tag team. That's a great question. It comes down to, right, whose role is it? I think that's really the question. Whose role is it to make it innovative, and where does that start? That's a question that we have had a great different amount of organizations have different responses with that. Some people feel that, or some organizations that we've spoken with don't understand why HR needs to be responsible for these kinds of pieces, and some organizations think that HR is responsible when it comes to innovative practices. But what we've learned through conversations is that really it's everybody's role to make programs innovative. It's really creating a safe space for those conversations where everyone's heard. And so when it comes to innovation, I think from what I've learned, and I'd like to hear from you as well, Lou, what I've learned is that when people are having those conversations, it's really about creating a process around innovation. So it's not just that everyone just gives an idea, it's about creating a space where you have time to speak to it, you have different ways of inspiring it and each other in that room, also making sure that you have the opportunity for everyone to have a phrase or a word involved, and then really boiling it down to, okay, how do we make this realistic? Because things that are innovative sound fun, right, but how do we actually make it practical? So having a space to both put everything on the board, or however your process works, get everything out there, making sure that we have all these great opportunities, but then being clear with who's the population, what does the learning look like afterwards, and how do we get this funded, how do we get sponsors involved? So when it comes to innovation, it's really up to the people that are running the programs, that are collecting the data, and really we see it as the responsibility of leadership, because without sponsorship of these programs, they don't float, they don't move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. It's a great question, because what the question says to me is, who is responsible for co-creating or developing programs? And it's such an integral question to the area of organization transformation today. And I have seen that the creation of innovations or development of programs, initiatives within our world's best organizations happens from all over the place. We've looked at change agents who are manager level, who bring it up to a VP level and say, this is what could happen in terms of the fun or innovation behind this program. There's a manager at Microsoft we know who was very new to the organization. It took her 2 years to prove to others in the organization that it was worth the effort. And the way that she proved it was, and I was in many of these meetings, she discussed it with everybody individually in interviews in that team. So she talked to 20 people the minute she came in who she knew were integral stakeholders for the success of that specific initiative. And she asked questions like, what's most important to you? What keeps you up at night? What are your challenges? And then she informed those questions by telling what her specific initiative would do to help them with their challenges and their business issues, and created a larger business case for that initiative. Though all of those 20 people were involved in the co-creation and design of that specific initiative. So the innovation becomes what we call participative design. It's in our book, Change Champions. You can look at one of the chapters on participative design. We have a lot of that information on bpiworld.com, and also something called whole system transformation, developed originally by Kathleen Dannemiller many in the 1980s, 1990s, further adopted by Roland Sullivan, who is our Chief Transformation Officer, and has been used quite a bit throughout the world, in Malaysia, in the Middle East, in Europe, in the United States, North America, with large-scale organizations, Airbus, Allstate, many other companies that are of note, in large world congresses. And in these instances, it's about the system developing the innovation. It's not about necessarily just the sponsor leadership team, which is very important because they fund the initiative and effort, so they must be on that top team to develop that kind of movement behind what will have happened, because there's no other ways to put it in the books or put it on the calendar. So transformation happens, as we see it, in a design 2.5 days as terms of an innovation. And in that third day, that half day, that's where the magic happens, we call the transformation happens in this design summit meeting with this with the team itself. Very important to understand this, that applying organization development principles to the practice of innovation is exactly the way in which we co-create to create successful outcome-driven initiatives within our organizations. Great question.
Yeah, good question indeed. Let me move to another interesting one. What are your views on the usage of psychometric tools in assessing or acquisition of talent? Are they productive, or prospects can deceive through maneuvering techniques by opting answers to give the wrong impression?
Yep, another great question. So the question is around psychometric tools, and can psychometric tools create assumptions that are not necessarily healthy for the organization? Would that be correct? Can you get a quick correct or yes? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. That is also a great question. So there's questions out there, Hogan, MBTI, NEOPR. There's Lominger, so many different psychometric tools that are validated in the world of assessments today. Now, wonderful way of phrasing that, and that is, can an assessment create a perception of an individual that is not necessarily that accurate of that individual? Absolutely. The field of perception is so important, because we look at a 360-degree assessment instrument. In that 360-degree assessment instrument, we give the individual an opportunity to show how they perceive themselves vis-a-vis the competencies of the organization. So they get a chance to give their finger to the wind in terms of their own perception of what they are exhibiting in behavior, skills, knowledge, and attributes. Secondarily, we get perceptions from a full circle: our bosses, our peers, our superiors, our direct reports, or even our customers. In this case, we get a finger to the wind that is a specific point in time, and it's defined that it's a perception. When we look at psychometric tools that are defined and validated with a specific set of assumptions, we end up showing those assumptions and they become more prevalent in terms of a model or construct that's easy to fall back on. In my opinion, 360's multi-rater assessment pushes the perception question much more readily than a preconceived validated instrument may do. So I think it's very important for organizations to realize that instruments, psychometric instruments and tools, can create a perception of an individual's worth, an individual's capabilities, and the ability for that person to succeed in a company. So it's very important at that instance of perception to determine whether or not it's true. The questioning process of is it true, a metaphysical concept of is it true, must be asserted in all psychometric tools and instruments, including 360s. So the process of is it true must be continued throughout time. There's a tool called SkillRater that has anytime feedback, skillrater.com. That means that you have a point in time when you get one perception. That perception only happens once. It can be changed. So the individual gets a chance to see, and the company gets a chance to see that change in time, thus allowing for that metaphysical questioning process. The why, the is it really true? Because most of the time, there's a 90% chance that it's not true. There may be a 20% chance of it's not true, but that's most likely because they've asked the questions over and over again to get to close to zero, not always zero. So of course, there's always a potential that it is true. Wonderful question. Question that I think we all grapple with in how we define an individual, how we place assumptions on an individual, and how we help individuals to grow throughout time. Great question. Thank you for it.
Well, thank you. Another quick one. In one of the slides, you talked about the integration of leadership development with talent functions. Could you please elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that. So one of the critical success factors is what's being referenced right there in our research. So to expand on that a bit, organizations are really looking to make sure that their talent programs or any kind of program that is coming out of talent departments is not siloed. It's not just a program to have a program. Organizations are being very purposeful of why they're having these programs. So making sure that they're integrating it with other functions, including succession planning. Are you putting the right people in these programs that you know will end up coming out of the programs and be placed or have career development conversations or coaching conversations? You know, in the past, some organizations have had problems with it. I'm not sure if anyone here can maybe relate to that, where a program has been put on, they've even had sponsorship, people that were not really involved, etc. And when it ended, they didn't integrate it with anybody else. It was siloed. It was just their program, and it wasn't successful the next year. Why? Because it wasn't integrated with the culture, it wasn't integrated with other programs, but specifically it wasn't integrated with other functions. And the example that's given here is succession planning. Very much that's how often it's tied into these programs. So making sure that you're purposeful and that it's tied in to make sure that it will not just disappear. It's really sustainable in itself.
This is a great crowd, by the way, Ali. These are
sure.
Applicable.
And I think the question speaking deeply to what we're hearing of integration, and there's, you know, we have a white paper we wrote on integration of technology, talent, and leadership development. And what we say is technology is not enough. We need culture. And we have an integrated talent management model as well, showing business strategy at the beginning, in the center, workforce planning, analytics, human capital management, leadership development being on, many others being on the outskirts, HRIS systems and human resources generalist being in there as well. The full integration is where we're moving toward, of course, because everybody wants the full integration. So, you know, there are companies that are doing really outstanding work in terms of software as a service on this, in terms of the IT components. We've talked about a lot of them. One of them that was one of my favorites is Workday. SkillRater is definitely something that can plug into it, which is another awesome tool out there. SkillRater is really the perception tool, kind of connects back into what he had said. Christie's words were excellent in terms of purposeful driven data that connects directly to the leadership development, talent management programs. You do need a context behind it though, and it goes back to co-creation. Involve the team in the development of your ITM model and bring the players together from all divisions. Don't just focus on HR. Bring in accounting, bring in sales and marketing. Bring in business development, bring in your operations components. Don't just focus on HR. If you do just HR, you put all your eggs in one basket. It'll be harder and harder to involve and incorporate the other divisions of your organization. So the best players we've talked to come from sales, come from IT, come from different divisions, and work through HR as well to integrate these functions. So my strong recommendation is don't just stay siloed in HR. Expand to other divisions of your organization.
Okay, we have another.
Thanks for the great question.
Well, it's getting very interesting. Another quick, interesting one. Regarding evaluating talent development programs, can you rank the most top 3 KPIs to evaluate the success of these programs?
Sure. Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, you can begin. Okay.
So there's a bunch of key performance indicators for talent development or leadership development programs. I always like to go to Kirkpatrick's evaluation principles. I like Jack Fitzen's work as well as the ROI Institute, which is Jack Phillips. Dr. John Sullivan has an awesome framework around it too. All these experts we've worked with, and they're all BPI experts. What I would recommend is, number 1, behavioral change is critical. I don't recommend, though, behavioral change at a static level. So most companies do 3, 6, 9, 12-month behavioral change. I'm recommending behavioral change on a weekly basis. Let's see how it really moves. Let's see how we can really extend the confines of perception to a more consistent basis, because generationally people want more feedback consistently. So that's number 1, more consistent behavioral change as a key performance indicator. Number 2, connection to ROI. Okay, you've heard it over and over again. However, it needs to be much more defined in your organization. Let me tell you about a way some organizations do it. Google, Facebook, and IBM have performance per employee. Let me tell you what they are. Google and Facebook have about 2 to 2.2 million in productivity per employee. IBM, guess what they have? $200,000 per employee. Why? Well, look at their recruitment figures. Look at who they're recruiting. Look at how they're excelling in the companies. Look at what they're doing internally to have contests, to have continual internal collaboration movements for best practice sharing. Look what they're doing inside and how they're acquiring the talent to be effective inside of their business strategy. So you're just going to ask, why is IBM not doing it as much? It goes to recruitment methodology, and it goes to some internal movements. So you have to see why it is that those numbers are different and what are the outcome factors that connect in to those variables of productivity. So ROI is very important, and ROI per employee is very important.
Do you mind if I jump on
that?
Yeah,
please. Good. Yeah.
So I get excited when I hear about that.
Yeah.
So to talk about the connection to ROI, and I know you had mentioned some of the figures that especially Sullivan speaks about a lot. When you talk about the acquisition and retention, and specifically you talked about Google, what Google does well, especially to retain their employees when it comes to this, is that when they reward people, they reward individuals, but they reward groups, and they give the power to managers and leaders to actually give those rewards to people rather than the same people within the organizations. So individuals are not just getting financial bonuses, etc., but they're actually getting known by their leaders. So again, that advocacy principle, where people are really involved with each other and creating partnerships. So for example, as a leader, they were speaking to this. They won't just get a bonus. Their boss knows that they really enjoy red wine. They understand that they really like the restaurant down the street. They know that that person's family is really involved in soccer or baseball or football. And they're actually giving different types of rewards to those people rather than just financial pieces. So they're actually making that a little bit more complex, but actually bringing that retention rate up by doing different principles or innovative ways of providing rewards. So.
Perfect, Christy. Thanks for the explanation behind
course.
Google. So that is another connection to the metric of ROI as a KPI. And you could define it in many ways for ROI. It could be a business metric of sales, profitability, cost savings. It could be a workforce planning metric with regard to recruitment, succession, exit, attrition. So there's some of the ROI. Here's an additional one, which is transfer of learning. So basically, in a transfer of learning KPI, what you're looking at is after your actual effort occurs, you want to ask questions related to what have you actually done or learned in this initiative or challenge or development effort that will be utilized and implemented back on the job. And so after that occurs, what you'll want to do for a KPI is follow up regularly with that individuals to determine how and what they've done to impact your second layer of KPI, which is ROI. So utilizing behavioral change, utilizing an ROI metric driven by business results or workforce planning results specific to those two types of data, or number three, transfer of learning, are three great ways to do KPI related to talent development.
Okay, thank you, and really appreciate your very, very elaborative answers. We can take one or two more questions, folks, and there's another one, interesting one I'm just going to read. What major hurdles normally do you think organizations confront in aligning workforce planning with business strategy?
Sure. So what I've heard have been the biggest challenges when it comes to alignment is the fact that there are so many different systems and programs and different pieces of technology that different siloed functions and partners are utilizing. It's very challenging to create one structured process using so many different technologies. That has been one big hurdle that people have had when it comes to aligning. The second piece is actually having those conversations and creating those partnerships to actually have that alignment. We've just spoken about Michael Manning at Southern California Edison. He said that when he had connected with finance, it changed everything. And he said it really broke down that silo. A lot of people think that because you're in one function, because you do things differently than another, that those conversations will be so challenging. But it turns out everyone wants the same thing. They want enterprise opportunities. They want to have those conversations. They want managers to have that data, but you can't have that until you are aligned. So the two big pieces really were around the integration, or making sure that there's that one platform for all that information, and then creating those partnerships for those conversations to actually align. Because a lot of times when it comes to those cycles that are maybe on different time scales, making sure that you are creating that same time when you're beginning and same time when you're ending, because you can't have decisions without the partnerships that you have across the functions and without the one place to get all of your information.
Okay, one last question. In your findings, what are some of the most sought out support that organizations look from leaders for talent development initiatives?
Yeah, that is my favorite question. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. We're finding through conversations that, in these organizations that have this culture, the majority of them are actually pushed by senior leadership. They want to be involved. I gave that example of Lars Sorensen and Novo Nordisk, and we understand that different cultures have different ways of doing things. We had a conversation with an organization that said, we actually got leadership excited by making sure we used their language, by making sure that we were on their planning or budget cycle, knowing when they would have to make those. We did the legwork for them. We came to them with not only questions that would be helpful for them to think about, but the answers. So we did that groundwork ahead of time. But leaders are really being involved when it comes to talent initiatives, especially with high potentials or diversity and inclusion initiatives, whether it's the kickoff, whether it's being involved in those programs. A lot of times they're involved with mentoring, actually adopting or advocating for that top talent to move forward, having those career conversations. So those are just a few examples of how leaders are getting involved. And so I would say some of the hurdles that people have come into have really been just around making sure that they were able to have those conversations and be prepared ahead of time. So showing up prepared and being confident and taking a stakeholder approach to talent development with leadership.
Well, thank you very much, Christy, and thank you very much, Luis, for your time and for giving this very, very wonderful presentation, quite a comprehensive one indeed. I would like to thank you on behalf of MILE for taking this time to give us this presentation and making it a live webinar for all of us. So before I conclude, any concluding remarks that you would like to give?
We wanted to thank you again for having our connection here to Middle East, your work at MILE. We appreciate the work you do and very much appreciate this opportunity today. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to visit us, please do at any time at bpiworld.com. We appreciate everything here and look forward to continued connections with you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, once again, and indeed we look forward to remaining engaged with you, and thank you all of those who participated and for posing the questions and making it an interactive experience for all of us. We are recording this webinar and we will be uploading it in the next couple of days on MILE Community, so please stay tuned to community.mile.org. With that note, once again, thank you all. And